are different from how I have painted, which is great. Like I like to experiment a lot. And I think you can see the colors that I use. Like I use this sort of turquoise a lot, and I use red, and I use gold. But there's more neutrals, I think, in these ones. This series came out of an idea, and the idea is Palimpsest, which is, I think it comes from Greek, but I'm not even sure. I looked it up in Wikipedia, and what it means, and there's a thing you can read if you want to. It's about because paper was so expensive and hard to make, that they would reuse it. And sometimes they'd have to get the old stuff off, so they'd wash it off, or they'd scrape it off, or they'd sand it off. So if you've ever tried to do that, you know that it mostly comes off, but not completely. So what would happen is that the old stuff, the ghost of the old stuff is still there, and then they put the next layer on. And maybe they'd reuse it again, so they'd wash it off again, and the ghost of both layers would be there. So my idea was how maybe there would be multiple layers, and little bits from the history of that piece of paper would come through. And so then, of course, I thought about human beings and how we have, that's what our life is like, that memory is, to me, feels kind of layered. And I was painting in layers anyway, so it kind of made sense. And I did all kinds of things. Remember when Max had his show and he talked about all the layers and stuff, and I thought, man, that's exactly what I'm doing. And so we talked about that, and he was saying, you know, I'm not trying to make it be something, and I thought, I kind of am, and I'm not. What I'm writing is things that I really like. I'll write a song lyrics that I like, or I'll write a poem, or I'll write a quote from somebody. Like Jesse Reno, this guy that I studied with, he said, to find something new, you have to get lost. And so I wrote that down, and I wrote it in different ways on paper, and I'd write it on paper that would kind of disappear when you glued it on, and some paper that wouldn't. So you'll see layers. Mostly, like here's a good example. Actually, there's an article from, I don't know, the New Yorker about Lena Horne on the bottom, and then there's some stuff I wrote over that, and some other stuff that I wrote over that. So, I don't know, it's just, every single one's different. Some of them have more writing than others. The idea was what kept me going. Like this one, for example, is called Prehistoric Graffiti, because I'm fascinated with petroglyphs and early writing. Like I took this class with someone, and she was fascinated by early writing, and she said, you know how in Hebrew, like in English, we write this way. We write left to right. Hebrew and Arabic goes this way, but she said this really early stuff went the way the plow goes, and it would go up and back. Or like Japanese and Chinese, right? You know, and so, I don't know. So anyway, some of this stuff is vertical, because it is. So, mostly it's just a lot of experimenting. There's some Italian too. So, any questions? I make my own collage materials. I'm using this stuff called deli paper. It's like a heavy tissue, and it comes in 12 by 12 squares, and you use it to either wrap your sandwiches or make collage materials.
Jacqui, have you ever done like the process you're saying with tape? Do you ever try to sand any of it back off and then work on top of that? And see
Yeah, I sand a lot. I also have this paint scraper. It's one of those ones that has this very sharp thing. I'll just and carve through it. So.
Is it hard to cover things up that you felt were precious, and then you cover them up and you're like, oh, I wish I would have kept that?
Sometimes it really is. Like I'll have glued something on and I love what it looks like, but it doesn't work for the whole piece.
Yeah.
So I'll need to cover it. But a lot of times I don't want my words to be actually legible, so I cover them up on purpose, because it's not It's not a magazine, you're not gonna sit and read it. Although I had a paint one time, a few years ago, somebody bought a painting and they wanted me to say what was written. They were trying to read it, and I said,
You can make something up.
yeah. They said, well, we could read a few of the words, and I'm like, okay. So, anyway, okay, thank you.
Thank you.